Maximum News. It is hot. Hottest day of the year where I am right now, but you don't care about that. But just in case, I sound a little bit off today, that's the reason why. I am, of course, Max, joined here by Syb. Let's get right into the news. More Fallout TV show leaks have been coming out this past week. We talked a little bit about some of the leaks in last week's episode, but more stuff has come out. Seeing that Syb is the Fallout guy, I'm going to throw it over to him. Syb, what have we learned from these leaks?
So nothing super new that we talked about last week other than a confirmation of a couple things. We got a confirmation that it is based in Fallout 33.
Yeah.
And we also know that they're filming in a couple more places, including an old train depot train station. And there's a few other locations that are very, very, very interesting that seem to be the focus of their filming. And what we can say for sure now is that we don't know where this is in the slightest. We don't know where they're the point of the story where they're filming at, right? So we know the physical locations that they've been filming at, but we don't know why they're filming in these locations, and we don't know what they're filming for. We had some initial kind of speculation and ideas. Lots of people did. There's been speculations like
New
crazy.
York was one of them.
But with all of this stuff, we don't know if they're filming for a centralized location, the story taking place over the course of 100-mile radius in one state, or if they're going to be filming from multiple states, with the content being in multiple states. So kind of like a Game of Thrones, because it's the easiest thing that people are familiar with, where you're actually tracking multiple stories at the same time in multiple locations. Maybe they're tracking raiders, vault dwellers, the Enclave, Vault Tech, all at the same time in different places and in different times, kind of showing history and catching things up, so to speak.
Sure.
So this is really interesting. We're it could also be that there's a travel component, which I mean, that makes sense for a Fallout story. You start in one location and you progress from there all over the place to different locations. And if that's the case, then we've got some interesting content coming as far as the narrative story goes. We still aren't seeing any of the main plot points, so that's kind of good. We know that aside from the fact that we know that the Brotherhood, the Enclave, Vault Tech, Raiders, everybody's in here. What they're playing and how they're playing it, we don't know for sure. We're going to avoid major story spoilers on here when they show up.
Yeah.
But the fact that all of the how do you say it? All the factions are around, then I think that's kind of I think that's a good thing, because again, we're hoping that we see, stuff that we want to see. And if if a certain faction wasn't going to be out there, or named or focused on or brought to bear, so to speak, that would be a little disappointing. So that's what we've got so far. It's nothing super huge, but it's good to see that. Again, I think what we're seeing is a following and a focus on the core components of what makes Fallout. And again, that's great, right?
Yes.
I want to see that. I don't want to see in the first season them tracking something that's not Fallout, right? That is sure, it's post-apocalyptic Survivor, maybe, but it's not actually Fallout. So yeah. One of the things that would be interesting is if they did it kind of like a vignettes kind of thing too. That would be really interesting, and then they just kind of follow up with stories that stick. So that would be kind of cool, and there would be a lot to see there for sure. Mm-hmm. So,
kind of like Game of Thrones in that way, where sometimes you just forget entire storylines for a season, like what they did with Brandon, and then come back later to that particular. Yeah, absolutely. As for the content of the leaks themselves, it basically just reaffirms everything that we talked about last week, is how they're basically nailing the aesthetic. We see the Vault Tech logos. We see a guy holding an actual laser weapon that looks like it's from the actual game, and it looks great. You got the Vault Tech employees with the white lab coats, and they had that little thing on their, what is it, Syb?
You would know the chest pocket device, and then their we've seen a lot of them equipped with Pip-Boys as well.
Oh yeah.
One or two of the actors does not know how to wear a Pip-Boy, so that's a little concerning. Some of the or it may be that the outfits have not been designed properly for Pip-Boys, and I know that's a bit of a trap because you do have to tailor clothes differently for when you're putting a Pip-Boy on your left arm. Like the clothes actually have to be physically different than some of the other stuff that we're used to seeing. So, exactly, how this works, we don't know for sure yet.
Right. I'm sure they'll figure it out. And even if they don't, like, whether or not their right or left shirt sleeve is hemmed properly isn't going to make or break the show. I mean, it might be distracting for like hardcore Fallout fans like Side, but for me, it doesn't matter.
Oh, for me, that would like, I would be like, why is this like this? Why is this like this?
It'd be like
drive me literally nuts. Stuff like that, like one of the most distracting things for me when I go to the movies or some public seminar or something like that is when the person in front of me has like a single hair out of position, just like one, and it's really out of position, or they got like something on their shoulder and they don't know it's there, and it's just like if I'm sitting behind there, I'm not understanding or hearing anything that the speaker is going to say at all in the slightest.
It's like that character that Fred Savage played with the mole in Austin Powers and Goldmember. Everybody's just looking at him while he's talking. They're just wanting to rip the thing off his face. Yeah, I understand. If I were, let's say the Metal Gear Solid movie were coming out and Snake didn't wear a bandana, that shit would piss me off too. So I get it. But yeah, generally really encouraging. If you go to Juicehead's channel and look at his most recent video on the Fallout TV leaks, you can get a look at everything that's been coming out in regards to that, and it looks good. So good. Moving on from good news to bad news. Beyond Good and Evil 2, sort of a joke now between Saib and I about how the game doesn't, we don't know what the hell's going on. It was announced 5 years ago. A whole bunch of gameplay came out about it back in 2018, I think maybe 2019, but then nothing. Absolutely nothing. Thankfully, we have Starfield coming out in the first half of 2023, and that is looking to fulfill what I was hoping Beyond Good and Evil 2 would do for me. But yeah, I was still curious, even though it is Ubisoft. It seemed like ambitious enough, and it's obviously also nice to see a cult classic IP like Beyond Good and Evil revived. But we haven't heard anything since 3 or 4 years ago. Until today. Well, it seems that 6 years after it was announced, they hired their lead writer, Saib. They didn't think to hire them earlier on. Or I don't know, maybe they did hire a lead writer earlier on and they just weren't working out. But the woman that they hired announced in a tweet on August 3rd, okay, so that was 3 days ago. She announced, her name is Sarah Arellano, that she is joining as the game's lead writer. She has worked as the narrative designer for Blizzard on World of Warcraft and at Volition, the studio responsible for Saints Row. I'm not sure if that's the more recent Saints Row or the ones that came before it, the good ones. Well, we don't know if the new one coming out this month is going to be any good. We'll see. But yeah, what the heck is going on with this game? Like, I'm glad to hear that this is a step forward to us actually getting this game. But I don't know, like, given what happened with Skull and Bones and how uninteresting that is to me, I just imagine something like that happening with Beyond Good and Evil 2. I don't know. Sab, what do you think?
I think you're pretty much spot on. And that this isn't a good thing. This means that so from my vantage point, what this is telling me is that for some reason, they've mostly been working on graphics, features, and gameplay, and they have no story.
Right. That's, yeah.
Which is like, from so you're like, well, what's the problem with that? They have everything but the story written. It's like, yeah, but...
Well, if there's no context for what you're doing in the world, what's the point?
Well, what that may end up meaning is that what they've done is they've just finished creating the base tools for the game. which I've been afraid about for a while, is that at some point, like when we saw it in the past, we weren't looking at a completed game or a game that was close to completion. We were looking at an engine that had a bunch of tools and gimmicks that they were kind of slapping together and getting a base like thing running for it. And I think that it might be that we're not hearing any more about this game because this game is still 4 or 5 years away.
Yeah, that's so disappointing, man. Because like when we saw that gameplay in 2018, even for an Ubisoft game, I was impressed. Like I know it was earlier on, and you could see it's very rough around the edges, but what they were going for, I was encouraged. But to think that, like you said, it's 4 or 5 years later, that it's going to be 10 full years between the official announcement of this game and when we actually get it, I don't have any hope for it. By that time, games like Starfield would have been improved upon to the point where you can do everything that Beyond Good and Evil 2 was promising us with mods.
Yeah, well, I mean, and this is part of the really disturbing thing as far as like certain game development goes. When Star Citizen came out, they were promising like the moon, and people lined up and shelled money at them like crazy.
No pun intended, by the way.
Yeah, and now they're at the point now where if you look at the progress of their game and then you look at No Man's Sky and Star Citizen, we're going to be getting games that are fairly comparable.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, so maybe what you guys did is you aimed so high and so far that you're like, hey, let's make this Wing Commander like game, which I am a fan of. I cannot iterate this more. I probably put more time into Wing Commander in the series for Wing Commander, Privateer, those games. That's what Star Citizen is based off of. I played more of that than I have most other games because I spent entire years in my youth just playing like Privateer. Like, gosh, I played that for weeks and weeks and months straight over the course of like 3 to 4 years. Like that was my like I went from those kinds of games into things like, World of Warcraft to 2003.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like where we're games like, not obviously that game. But and that's so again, I'm really worried about this. I really am. I think that what we have is we might have a kind of a dud. The other thing that I think they were doing is they're pulling that Square Enix where it's like, let me show you this 7 minute amazing trailer that looks like it belongs in a movie. And this is our announcement trailer that we're going to start working on a game that's going to look maybe a little bit like this. And then 7 years later, you get the game. It's like, I'm afraid that's what we're starting to see as a norm in the industry as far as like what they're actually like making and doing and giving us.
Yeah.
And I don't like that very much at all. Like, not even in the slightest. That is not something that I appreciate in the gaming space. I think that it's filthy, and it's just treats your fans so rudely. It's like, here's a game that you guys aren't going to see until you're like, here's a game that you're not going to see until you're done college and your first child is having his 3rd birthday.
Right.
And you're going into your first year of college. I think that's dishonest marketing, frankly.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I might be wrong, but
yeah.
Let me know what you think in the comments. Am I wrong? Am I blowing it out of proportion?
No, you're 100% right. It's happening all the time. It's happening all the goddamn time. And it's such a shame because companies like Ubisoft, EA, Activision, Blizzard, despite all the crap we give them, they do have a monopoly on the attention of the modern gamer. And they're taking that attention, putting it on games like Beyond Good and Evil 2, Assassin's Creed, Skull and Bones, Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six, and not giving it attention to other gamers, indie developers, even not just indie developers, but anything below AAA that deserve our attention, that deserve our money, because we're just waiting for all these other games to come out. right? We're playing through Rainbow Six and putting like 2,000 hours into that, right? So you guys know what I mean. Anyways, at least we're getting Star Citizen next year. Maybe we'll get Star Citizen. I can't talk today. We established this before we started recording. At least we're getting Starfield next year, and maybe we'll get Star Citizen sometime in the next few years, but who knows? We said that 3 years ago. And then hopefully Starfield will be good. All right, let's move on to something that's actually pretty cool. It makes me happy as a Halo fan. So,
I've been tracking this. This was quite exciting.
Yes, and it's especially impressive for somebody like me who knows Halo inside and out. Syb, all you have to do to trigger a Halo gamer is utter the 4 following words: Jackal snipers on Legendary. Now, what that means, like every Halo fan that's a hardcore Halo fan knows what that means. Halo 2 on Legendary is so goddamn hard. It's unfair. And I think the developers even knew that it was unfair. They, if I recall correctly, they made Halo 2 purposefully harder because they saw what people were doing with Halo 1 and how the speedrunners for that game, like doing co-op and all that. In Halo 1, if one of your co-op partners dies, you have the opportunity to respawn if your other teammate stays alive. But with Halo 2, if one of you dies, you have to start over at the last checkpoint. That's hard enough on its own. Now, things get to borderline impossible when you add on these things called the skull modifiers. So throughout Halo 2, you could find these skulls that change, like skulls, actual human skulls throughout the game's levels, and that when you find them, it gives you the opportunity to change certain aspects about the way that the game is played. So for example, if you find the blind skull, it gets rid of your heads-up display. If you find the catch skull, it makes enemies throw grenades more often. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Like if you want to get your shields back, you have to melee an enemy, stuff like that. And then, if that wasn't like the most difficult thing ever, there is a challenge that exists that was put forward by a very popular YouTuber. His name is Charlie something. He goes by Cr1TiKaL online. He has like tens of millions of subscribers. He's very popular. You probably know him even if you don't think you know him. He put forward a challenge to people saying, look, I want to find somebody who can beat Halo 2 on Legendary with all the skulls enabled, with the exception of one, which gives you active camo, and you cannot die once. When I hear that, just the prospect of maybe like, you know how, Syb, you try to think about what hell must be like if it actually exists. My version of hell would be that. Just to try and beat Halo 2 on Legendary, all the skulls, and not die once for the rest of eternity. Because it's that hard.
So for the record, I've mentioned this on our main channel a bunch of times. I ranked into the initial, for my country, I ranked into the top 10 for my country for the one of the first Halo tournaments.
Really?
Yeah. For one of the very first international Halo tournaments. And I had to drop out because my parents at the time thought that was an enormous waste of time and money, and that there was no reason for me to be trouncing across the continents to play a video game because there's no future in video games. No. If I wanted to, get something done, I should, get that part-time job at the thing.
At the thing.
I know. Now Ash and I would, whenever the new Halo game would come out, we would go and we would play the crap out of it. We would usually 5 or 6 of us would go show up at one place. We'd sit down and we would just start playing through the campaign on like one of the hardest difficulties that we could.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about when I talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And it like I knew about the skulls, I knew about the challenge. We beat it on the hardest difficulty on multiplayer. That was the one where it's like if one of you died, you had to start over at the beginning of the chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the skulls.
We beat the game. We beat the game like that.
What?
Yeah. Now we didn't do the no death, like, restart every time you die.
Right, but even then,
we did do the and that was the initial like playthrough. So that was our initial playthrough. Ash and another friend of ours who used to be on the channel a very long time ago. The three of us tag teaming that eventually beat it. So yeah, it's like I understand, and even I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I want to do the skulls. I didn't want to do the skulls because it was like, it just sounded like insane to me, and I'm like, who in their right mind would do this?
Right.
So even me, as somebody who was at one point in time like one of the best Halo players in the early days, which is not that's not something that you can compare to like modern Halo and say that you're still one of the best, because modern Halo is very different. Like, it's evolved. There's way more like skill. There's way more like Twitch based everything. It's a lot more difficult. I'm not disputing the skills of the other, of like actual like top end streamers and pro players and that kind of stuff. But back in the day, which was like I said, it was a very long time ago. This is something that was like we were like considering it, and we were like, nah, that just sounds like crazy stuff. We got better things to do with our life.
Yeah, I know, right? I could learn an instrument in the amount of time it would take me to beat that. By the way, I did say Jackal Snipers on Legendary, but I didn't explain the Jackal Snipers part of it to people. The most powerful weapon, the most powerful enemy on Halo 2 Legendary are the Jackal Snipers. If you're in their line of sight for more than half a second, you will die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how hard they are. But anyways, did you have anything else you wanted to say to that before I wrap up what's going on with this story?
I watched the challenge. I watched him he started out with 10,000 USD, and then I saw him bump it up to 20,000 USD. And then I saw the update when somebody had won it, and apparently a really good guy, big family, very supportive. I could say that I'm so happy that it went to somebody whose family really supported them. I think that's great, and I think that it's so heartwarming. It almost moves you to tears. So I was so happy that guy got it. That I hadn't been able to really look deep into the story quite yet. I have the latest update video like queued up in my queue. But
yeah, the guy's name is Jervelin. He had been working on this challenge ever since Charlie. His name is Charlie White, but he goes by Moist.Critical. He issued the challenge. It was at $5,000. He bumped it up to $20,000 at the end of July, and then finally, Jervelin somehow managed to pull it off. I actually want to go and watch this. I think it took him like 8 hours to get through the whole thing, but just as a Halo fan, I feel compelled to watch this guy. And I think it's fair to say now that the fact that he was able to do this, he's probably the greatest Halo player alive. Right? Jervelin. I mean, maybe, I don't know how he is in terms of multiplayer, but at least in regards to campaign,
it is a little gimmicky. So the way that we dealt with the snipers, with the snipers, is that one of us would like peek around the corner as quickly as possible, like half second, no more, and because they would like kind of like line you up, and you get the little like laser light thing, and then the other person would like peek around the corner with, kind of identifying where the blast was coming from with the rocket launcher, and like, or with a sniper, and try and like shoot them out as quickly as I can. It was time consuming and it was grueling.
Yeah.
And in the last fight on that was, I think we probably spent like close to 4 hours on just the last fight. And
versus Tartarus?
By the end of it, I believe we were basically running. There were levels that we were basically running off of. Like just muscle memory, like because the map doesn't change from load up to load up. It's like basically muscle memory, and that's why like raiding I find so much fun to do raiding, because a lot of it boils down to like you're memorizing these fights over like, you know, like 50 wipes for these difficult ones, 100 for these like mythic ones, and you get it down pat to the point where you're just working off of muscle memory basically. And I like those. I like the ones that are like random, but the randomness, you can't have the high level of difficulty because you got to allow room for like people to actually do that muscle memory, actually do that, like, you know, memorize essentially the entire fight from beginning to end and exactly what everybody needs to do exactly when. So yeah, stuff like that. It's very comparable to this because he had to go in there and he basically had to memorize the location of every single, like memorizing the location of every single enemy, where every single enemy comes from and what every single trigger for that enemy is, and then all of the potential moves and directions that those enemies could go in during the course of each fight. And you basically have to like memorize that and like have every single like encounter like burned into your memory so that you can react to that as quickly as that. And that's what's so difficult about that thing. And he's got tremendous skill in being able to do that. So yeah, it's super cool.
Anyways, Trevelin, as a longtime Halo gamer and Syb as one as well, both he and I raise our hands in salute to you. You are an eternal badass, and we wish you all the best for having I hope you spend that $20,000 wisely. Go take your family to Disney World or something. All right. We got 3 other stories. Gonna have to go through these quickly because I'm sort of on a limited time here. Syb's gonna take the lead on these. What's going on with Stray and actual Stray Cats?
So
not the
Stray,
band, but
Stray, the
you know.
game, the game Stray, which has been just phenomenal for a very small indie game. These guys have done amazing, and a lot of people are getting as much enjoyment out of it as they would out of a lot of these AAA games. So very congratulations. They're doing really great.
Don't bet against cute cats, man.
They've decided that they're going to, because they've made so much money, they've actually decided to help actually fund a bunch of stray
cats. Oh, wonderful.
Real stray cats, and companies and associations, institutions, charities, that kind of stuff that help them. And they're doing a whole bunch of money raising through this, and this is really cool. This is really great, and it just goes to show that this game is doing really awesome. The other thing that's cool is that the modding community is taken off like crazy with this, and there's a whole bunch of mods coming out for the game now too. Ash is going to start reviewing them, and he's going to start putting up some stuff. We're gonna try and get some footage for that and get those videos rolling soon. So please check out the main channel, Triple S League, for that.
Did you see
coming soon?
Did you see the one mod where they turned the cat into CJ from San Andreas? That made me roll with laughter for like 5 minutes straight.
I did not see that one. I was waiting for the Thomas the Tank one, but
I'll link it to you. And I'll probably have to link it to you after we're done because you'll probably just break down laughing. It's so funny. But yeah, there was that one. Spyro. They actually modded Spyro into that game, the dragon, which is pretty cool. Yeah. I still haven't played it yet. My girlfriend's been off. We should probably get to doing that, but we've been playing Elden Ring together since February, and we're right at the very end where you fight. Well, I won't say for anybody who's hasn't gone there yet, but we're at the final boss. But maybe after we do that, we can get to Stray because she has a cat. I've never been able to own a cat because my mother was allergic and lived with my family for most of my life. But now that I'm living with her, her cat Artemis, which yes is named after the cat from Sailor Moon, was he's taken a great liking to me, and now I can say that I'm a cat person, and I could probably get a lot out of this game. Yeah, so that's wonderful to hear. You don't really hear about a lot of game companies doing that sort of stuff. I mean, I know there have been people who, like companies that have gotten a lot of money and done charitable stuff with that money, but they're few and far between, right? Mm-hmm. All right, next one. What is War Thunder?
War Thunder is it's a tank. Well, it's a tank. They got a couple different versions of it. So those tank and like airplane, like simulator, like so it's
like World of
sort
Tanks.
of it's like World of Tanks and stuff like that. Anyways, War Thunder is a special version that's like really focused on tanks and tank combat and stuff like that. And the tanks were not as realistic as some people who really like extreme realism in their video games. And some of the tanks were just not, you had one of the pedals in the wrong place, you had one of the guns mounted, one of the side guns mounted in slightly the wrong place. So a bunch of fans did what any normal, logical, clear-thinking individual would do. And they went and either hacked or collect classified documents and then released them online to allow the creators of this game to make even more accurate tank games. Because,
that is
when it comes to realism in your video game, and I don't know, like state level spying or treason. Seriously, guys, priorities. Obviously, you got to make the game more authentic. It's just obviously, right? So yeah, they posted classified information on China's DTC-10 125 tank.
Well, if it's China, then why not? No, I'm kidding.
and then some other stuff, because again, it's like you want a really accurate, so yeah, leak a bunch of the tank manuals from all of these games and just do it that way.
Saib, you and I were both on the autism spectrum. This is weaponized autism at its finest, and I don't know, no pun intended, by the way, I don't know whether to be impressed, like validated as an autistic person, or it's like, God, guys, you're doing a disservice to us by focusing on stuff like this. I don't know. What's your honest moral reaction to this?
Guys, learn some self-control. Learn some self-control. This is going too far. And coming from somebody who mods pretty much every game they play, this is going too far. When you're risking yourself being executed for treason, for realism in a video game, it's just a little too far. You don't have to do it.
Yes.
You don't.
Your life is more valuable than whether or not the tank operates exactly like it would in real life in your video game. Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does remind me, though, how nuts people can be when it comes to simulating realism. There's this one. Have you ever heard of a YouTuber named Air Force Proud 95?
No.
Okay, he does a lot of Microsoft Flight Simulator videos.
We have a lot of people in our community who do an enormous amount of Flight Simulator games.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I think I mentioned it before. We had a slight problem when one of them was like, "Hey, tell me where you live so I can fly by your house. I'll show you." Now, in their minds, they're just trying to be like, "Hey, look at this cool thing and look at the amazing map and the stuff." Didn't realize that that's depending on who you're asking, this is a very sensitive question for some people.
Right.
And so we had to give some warnings out. It was all in good fun. Nobody meant it badly, and we had to kind of explain some stuff. But other than that, yeah, we have a big community that loves that game, and I do enjoy it, and I do like watching what people are doing in that game. So yeah.
Yeah.
But what's the news?
Yeah, he has done like a lot of troll videos where he pretends to be like really, really serious about maintaining realism while playing Microsoft Flight Simulator. And then he's trying to land at an airport, right? And somebody's in the air traffic control tower. And he's like, can you please give us landing clearance in the proper FAA terminology? And then the guy at the tower is like, land the goddamn plane. And then the guy's like, all right, roger that. We're definitely getting more professional here. We're clear to land the goddamn plane at runway 22 left, something like that. It's hilarious. Go look him up. Like, his name is Air Force Proud 95, and then like troll. Just type that in. It's hilarious. But yeah,
some people take that game so seriously.
Simulator, yeah.
Any of the simulator games, like, and there's some really, I mean, it's not just that game. It's everything from WoW to
well, any game.
Yeah, any game that has like an online community that people can take their role play extremely seriously. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. I do think that you should set aside like, particular servers to them and encourage that kind of behavior. I have always played Warcraft on a roleplay server, like 100% of the time. And I have, whenever I've gone in to check out other games that happen to have a roleplay server, that's the first thing that I'll check out. If I see that there's a roleplay server, I want to see what the players are doing that make the game more interesting. In contrast to what the game studio is, attempting to force feed most players in telling them what to do. I like to see what people are doing outside of their purview and outside of their like control, right? I want to see like what are you doing here with this particular thing? Show me what you guys are doing that's different that the game company doesn't either know or have thought about. And roleplay communities definitely fit in there. Definitely fit in there. And it's always good to see healthy behavior there. It's the same thing with modding, and oftentimes those two things go hand in hand. That's why I love it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the opening day for Fallout 76, I got power armor as quickly as I could. I got it painted up like old style US military, and then I went down and stood in front of the on the server, because it was like, it's very small servers, and I just sat there greeting people as they came out of the vault, pretending to be
that's
an
awesome.
NPC, and just be like, soldier, you need to go. We need help fighting these scourge, and you need to go up here, and you need to do this, using an accent and everything. And I had a couple people thanked me. A couple people joined our Twitter. One of them joined our community. And it's stuff like that where it's like, I wish they had made it easier to do that on more of a mass scale, because it was so difficult. I would spend like 20 minutes at a time just trying to find one person.
Yeah.
And again, the bad release of 76 did not help in any way, shape, or form. And I feel that a lot of people would have taken that a little bit more friendly if the game had not been so such a mess at launch.
Yeah, it's kind of, even though from what I understand, it's gotten to a much better place than it was a few years ago.
Oh yeah, it is way better. Yeah, and they are doing good things with that. They're not just letting it go. They're not just letting it die. Now they are being held back by the engine, because it's not the upgraded engine. They have made good upgrades to it. They have made some fixes to it, but it's still very buggy, still very problematic. But there is still there's still life in the game. Not what I would prefer. Let me be clear. I would prefer them to give us full control. Stop trying to host your own servers. Like, you can host your own servers, sure, but give us the ability to host our own servers with unlimited control. Right now, we can't do that.
Yeah.
They don't allow mods. They don't allow us to get into the game to tweak things up, fix things up, change stuff. That's what I want to do. They don't give us the ability to control the number of players on the server at once. They don't give us the ability to like tweak the code, like unlike a lot of Minecraft servers and how they sell those. That's a brilliant way of doing it, and they really need to get on that. Give us the ability. That's the only thing that I think would really save it at this point. Like, really, like, relaunch it successfully.
That would be a huge news story.
Yeah, and it would be big, but I think like right now they're holding on to it. They're telling stories. The stories are not bad. They're good as far as like, especially compared to like recent gaming. There's been a whole bunch of recent games that have come out that is the story is just garbage in comparison to what they're doing with 76. Now again, does that mean that it's the best, that it's like great stuff? No. It's decent. It's okay. It's not good. It's not great.
Yeah, it's not New
It's
Vegas.
it's not redefining the genre in any way, shape, or form. Not even close. All it is just it's okay. You know, and again, when you're comparing that story that's okay, that's good enough, you know, not great, not good, just good enough. When you're comparing that to other triple A titles that come out that treat you like garbage as a fan, as somebody who's been following the thing for years, who enjoys the content, and then they just kind of more or less spit in your face and go, you know, what are you going to complain about? You ugly fan. You know, it's like they even like Star Wars fans are referred to as the fandom menace, and by people in the industry that are working on Star Wars stuff, they refer to them as this guttural, like, oh yeah, those disgusting degenerates. It's like you're not winning any battles here by referring to people who love your products as such. Get off your high horse and focus on making something that's at least doable. And that's what they're doing with 76. Again, I would have it not be the way that it is. I if I were there, I would completely change what they're doing for the most part. I would encourage them to keep writing the stories because the stories and the content have been getting better and better. But it's not at the level that I would like it to be. And again, I'm really hoping that this Fallout TV show and really kind of changes that up. I hope it has mad success and that we can actually get some like progress in advancing the story of Fallout, because it's one of my favorite universes. It's right up there with Stargate, and unfortunately Stargate is being left on the wayside too. Like all these shows are being rebooted and recast and all that kind of stuff. What you got one of the biggest sci-fi shows in history that's not being utilized, and it's depressing. So,
well, hopefully with Fallout, it can become like that staple franchise for Microsoft.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I really hope so.
And even then, it might replace Halo, which doesn't really make me happy as a Halo fan, but it'll be very interesting times for Fallout fans. All right, and we got one more.
There's one more.
Very wholesome episode today.
Yeah, turns out time spent playing video games unlikely to affect well-being. Like, so this is saying that you're playing a video game, it's not going to negatively affect you. It may not necessarily like super positively affect you, but it's not going to negatively affect you.
Right. It's sort of it's like it is for anything. Like anything taken to an extreme is bad, including video games. But the actual act of playing the games themselves, as long as you do it within reason, nothing harmful, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So it's not terrible for you, and turns out that it's actually kind of okay for you. So and as we covered in one of the last episodes, it's actually like you're actually jumping up your problem solving and math skills quite significantly.
Yeah.
So find good games that cause you to think outside the box. If a game feels like a chore, if you get that feeling like, oh man, I gotta do this again. I gotta log in to get this bonus because it's on a time thing, and they're trying to, if I don't get this, then I have to buy the pack that advances my battle pass an extra 10, and that's gonna cost. If you're playing a game and you're feeling like that, stop playing it. It's not healthy for you.
Yeah, tell me about it. By the way, in case anybody's wondering about the origin of the study, it comes from the University of Oxford. It was published in the Royal Society Open Science Journal on July 27th. That way, if anybody tries to make a link between violent video games and, or any sort of real-world negative event and try to link that to video games, you can sort of present that to them. And, I mean, this is sort of like basically a settled case for gamers like you and I, Side, but it's something that we have to keep constantly reminding people until, it gets beat into their heads that there is no... This video games are a good thing. Let's just put it that way. All right, before we go, Saib, I want you to look over into the Discord chat real quick and just get a look at this. We were just talking about Stray a second ago, right? Saib, pull this up. Yeah, I was talking about the CJ mod. Yeah, he's looking at it right now. You see this?
Okay, so it's actually CJ. I thought he was like a full on person. No, he looks like a cat. So they've shrunken his back legs and extended his like arms and hands and okay, so he actually just looks like a CJ cat. That's very funny. I do worry about certain things with that, but yes, this is fine. Everything is fine. There's a Garfield one. Yeah, there's a Garfield one, ladies and gentlemen. You can play as Garfield. Oh my goodness!
Is he fat and can he eat lasagna?
Oh, this is great. This is why modding exists.
Oh yeah,
why modding exists.
Although, granted, he looks like the movie version, but he still looks good, and he's got that S-eating grin on his face.
If you want to look like a gray tabby or a white cat with blue eyes or a Siamese cat with blue eyes, if you want to look like a little pug puppy, you could do that too. Mm-hmm. Oh my god, this game is great. These mods are amazing.
Yeah, I'm looking. You can download them off of Nexus Mods, and there's nexusmods.com, and there's about 100 different results, and people putting up versions of their own cats.
All the Sailor Moon cats. All the Sailor Moon cats are in.
Nice.
Right? Spyro the Dragon Cat. Yes.
Yep, I saw that.
We have that. There's some great stuff here. Like I said, Ash is going to be working on doing this as well as a first-person mod. As somebody, I've talked a lot about how I don't like first-person games. I applaud this. Applaud this. Why? Because it's a different perspective. It's doing something different with the first-person system. It's been too stagnant for too long. It's the same thing. It's not evolving the genres.
Yeah.
This is something that evolves the genre. Not a lot, just a little, but that still counts and that's still good. So yeah, I think this is great. I think this is wonderful. I would encourage you, if you're a fan of the game, check out Stray, and also please check out our main channel, the Triple S League. Ash is going to be doing some mod reviews. He's going to be covering some of this stuff here right away. We also have a couple other videos that are coming out on some of our other affiliated channels. So please pay attention to the main channel. We'll be that's the place to go to keep up on most of the channel news and what we're doing.
Right. I'll put links to that in the description box. And as for, if you guys want to check out some of the stuff that I'm doing, I'll just put links to that stuff in the description box below. You can basically just find me anywhere, just at Max Derrat by my name. Wholesome show, Saib, and we got through it pretty quickly. Had a lot of fun doing it. I wasn't in the best mood before, especially because it's so hot. But yeah, that's what happens when you have mostly positive stories to talk about, beyond good and evil too, not included. Thanks, guys, and until we do this again next week, I want to remind you, as always and as per usual, stay yellow.